John Wayne Gacy is a serial killer who is also known as the Killer Clown. He's a serial killer and a rapist, a child pedophile, with 33 victims from 1972 to 1978. His victims include boys and young men from Chicago, Illinois, by strangulation. On May 10, 1994, he was executed by lethal injection. Welcome back to the True Crime Lounge podcast. I do have a Patreon that you can join for early access. The episode is scheduled to come out. I also have a merch shop for all your true crime gear. For any updates on my channel or podcast, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. With that being said, why don't we dive into today's episode, shall we? Today we are going to be covering a case that is the reason a lot of people are afraid of clowns. This guy was literally was it before it was a thing. What? Literally it after the book, the real life it, in my opinion. But more terrifying and more pedophilia. Gacy was born March 7, 1942 in Chicago, and according to the book Killer Clown by Terry Sullivan and Peter Malkin, Gacy seemed to have a regular childhood, with the exception of a turbulent relationship with his dad, John Wayne Gacy Sr. The authors described the father as unpleasant, abusive, and alcoholic, who was prone to being physically and verbally abusive and assaulting his children. They described Gacy as a deeply loving his father and wanting to desperately gain his approval and his attention, but failing to win him over. After attending high school during his senior year and never graduating, he dropped out and left Chicago for Las Vegas. While there, he worked at part-time for a janitor at the Palm Mortuary. Unhappy in Vegas, he would return to Chicago a few months later. During the early 1960s, Casey enrolled at a business college and developed a talent for salesmanship. A born salesman and he could talk his way in and out of practically any situation. Upon graduating, he went to work as a management trainee at Non Shoes Company in downtown Chicago. He excelled in his position, and within weeks he was transferred to Springfield to manage a men's clothing outlet for the company, where he remained employed there for nearly a year. Shortly after his promotion, he married into a wealthy family and relocated his new bride to Waterloo, Iowa. In 1966, at the request of the father-in-law, Gacy took over management of the family's chicken restaurant. Gacy quickly became well known and was liked members of the community, according to later accounts in the Waterloo Courier. However, all was not well for him. The future serial killer would be arrested for his first time in 1968. The felony charge was attempting to coerce a male employee into a homosexual act. Came as a big surprise for those who thought they knew this likable father of two infants, especially a wife of 2 years. He would plead guilty to sodomy and be sentenced to 10 years in Iowa State Men's Reformatory in Mimosa. His wife would file for divorce following the sentencing, which angered him, and he informed her that he did not want to see his children again and would henceforth consider her consider her he did not want to see his children again and consider her and her 2 kids dead. After serving 18 months, he was paroled in 1971, moved back to Chicago. He went to work as a construction contractor and then started his own construction business. That July, he remarried a recently divorced woman and that he had met through mutual friends and financial assistance from his mother, moved into a house in Des Plaines with a financial help from his mom. In February 1971, he again would run into trouble with the law. He was charged with attempted rape of a young man. The charges were dropped when the victim failed to appear in the court for a hearing. Gacy had a talent for business. According to the Plains Journal, he was known for local merchants as a sharp businessman who would often undercut his business rivals' contracts by hiring a number of high school age employees to cut his cost, and his business grew. Gacy would spend his leisure hosting elaborate street parties for friends and neighbors, dressing as a clown and entertaining children at local hospitals. He also immersed himself in organizations such as the JC's and local Democratic Party and a Democratic precinct captain. He once had his picture taken with the First Lady Rosalind Carter, and Gacy's second wife divorced him in March of '76, according to accounts by the Harlan Mantel's book, Fall of the House of Gacy. Okay, so I really want to say Fall of the House of Usher so bad, so bad. My reading side is coming out. But his second wife felt that she could no longer cope with the marriage to her husband's unpredictable moods and bizarre obsession with homosexual magazines. This time, the couple had no children. On December 12th, 1978, the police again focused their attention on on Gacy. Robert Peast, a teenage boy at a local Des Plaines pharmacy, had come up missing. Gacy was the last person who was seen with the boy prior to his disappearance. When the investigators ran a background check on Gacy, however, they were surprised to discover that he had previously served time for sodomy on a teenage boy. With this incriminating information, investigators were able to obtain a warrant to search his house. Okay, how did he not have to register as a sex offender? Is what I want to know on this. But during the investigation of the warrant, execution of the warrant, investigators offered enter a crawl space beneath the home with a nasty odor was quickly noticed. The smell was believed to be a faulty sewage lines and was quickly dismissed without any noticeable incriminating evidence. Investigators returned to the headquarters to run tests and on the evidence that they seized. During a review of the items confiscated from Gacy's home, investigators soon realized that they had unknowingly seized a piece of critical evidence. One was the ring found at Gacy's house, which belonged to another teenager who had disappeared a year earlier. With this new information, investigators began to realize that the possible enormity of the case that would be unfolding before them followed the discovery of their new information, and it was not long, before the investigators were able to obtain a second search warrant for Gacy's home. On December 22nd, 1978, Gacy, realizing that his dark secrets were about to be exposed, confessed to the police that he had murdered approximately 33 young men over the past 7 years. He also drew them a map in the locations of the 38 shallow graves under the house and garage. Further, he admitted to dumping 5 others into the Plains River. He also told detectives that there were 4 Johns. He later explained that there was John the contractor, John the clown, John the politician. The fourth person went by the name Jack Hanley, and Jack was the killer and did all the evil things. Sounds like he had a case of BPD. Gacy's murder trial would take place February 6, 1980 in the Cook County Criminal Courts Building in Chicago. And during the 5-week trial, the prosecution and the defense called more than 100 witnesses to testify. The defense strategy was to establish Gacy was insane and out of control at the time of the killings. To bolster this claim, the defense put to the stand psychiatrists who've interviewed Gacy prior to trial, and after closing arguments, the jury deliberated only 2 hours before finding Gacy guilty of murder. On March 13, 1980, Gacy would be sentenced to die. He was transported to Menard Correctional Center in Illinois. He would remain there for just 14 years until he was transported to Statesville Penit- Penitentiary near Joliet for execution. On May 9th, 1984, Gacy sat down for his last meal: fried chicken, french fries, Coke, and a strawberry shortcake. Prison officials later described his demeanor as chatty, talking up a storm. In a phone interview shortly before his execution, he told a Night Tribune reporter, "There's been 11 hardback books on me, 31 paperbacks, 2 screenplays, 1 movie, and 1 off-Broadway play, 5 songs, and over 5,000 articles. What can I say about it?" But of course, he quickly protested, saying, "I have no ego for any of this garbage." Just after midnight on May 10th, 1994, he was executed by lethal injection. For his last words, he literally said, "Kiss my ass." Yeah, those were his last words. He didn't have any remorse, did he? But can we at least know like a little bit about him real quick? We know that he was of Polish and Danish ancestry. He had a troubled relationship with his dad, an alcoholic who abused him and called him a sissy. He was so close to his sisters and mom, who affectionately called him Johnny. When Gacy was 11, he was struck on the forehead by a swing. The resulting head trauma formed a blood clot in his brain and went unnoticed until he was 16, when he would suffer blackouts and he was prescribed medication to dissolve the clot. After attending 4 high schools, he would drop out eventually, completing his senior year and leaving his family heading west. After he would run out of money in Vegas, he worked long enough to earn money to make it back to Chicago. But yes. Alright, that is it for today's episode. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a great day and a fabulous holiday.